Chapter 6497. In terms of being despicable, I admit defeat. Her cold voice was as fresh and natural as spring water. Her calm face did not have the slightest trace of mockery. However, it was these kind of words coupled with that kind of face that had the most destructive power. You. Guan Hongtian was so angry at Bailey Hongzhuang that he did not know what to say. Don't be too proud. This kind of poison is definitely not difficult to detoxify. Peh. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. You can try. Uncle? Guan Yi looked at Guan Hongtian for help. He did not know why, but he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was too confident. This made him very uneasy. Someone, bring 2 antidote pills. With a wave of Guan Yi's hand, the attendant of Wanbao Pavilion immediately brought 2 antidote pills. Quickly take it. Seeing this, Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman did not dare to delay and immediately took the antidote pills. As long as the antidote pills could detoxify the poison, then they would be able to teach these 2 hateful fellows a lesson without any scruples. Everyone looked at this scene with interest, not knowing what the outcome would be. Bewitching stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang calmly. There was no need to say more about his wife's poison skills. When she was in the upper realm, her poison skills were already at the peak. Now, with Granny Hua's guidance, even in the immortal realm, her poison skills were definitely outstanding. In fact, in these days in the abandoned immortal forest, Bailey Hongzhuang's poison skills had improved more than her cultivation. After Yun Xiaoman took the antidote pill, she quickly looked at the black line in her hand. As long as the black line disappeared, they would be able to kill Bailey Hongzhuang at the first moment. At that time, the treasures on these 2 people would all be theirs. With so many pills and talismans, how many cultivation resources could they exchange for? Perhaps, they could even use these cultivation resources to reach the elementary immortal realm. Or how is it? Guan Hongtian looked at Guan Yi with concern. He had always been very concerned about this nephew of his. No matter what, he couldn't let anything happen to Guan Yi. Guan Yi stared blankly at the black line that was still visible on his palm. His expression turned ugly. Uncle, it doesn't seem to work. Useless? Guan Hongtian grabbed Guan Yi's hand in disbelief. This detoxification pill was quite effective. It could detoxify all common poisons, even some of the more complicated ones. Guan Hongtian's heart sank when he saw the clear line of poison with his own eyes. No wonder these 2 fellows were so calm. It seemed like they were extremely confident in their methods. As long as we catch them, we'll be able to find the poison on her body. One of his subordinates couldn't help but say. Once they attacked, the 2 of them would definitely be unable to escape calamity. However, everyone knew this, but Guan Hongtian didn't dare to act rashly. Because according to Bailey Hongzhuang, it wouldn't be difficult for her to kill Guan Yi and Jun Mocf first. He couldn't gamble and didn't dare to gamble. Once Guan Yi died, how would he face it? Not only Guan Hongtian, but Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman's faces also turned red. Didn't this mean that the initiative had fallen into the hands of the other party? What do you want? Yun Xiaoman looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with an ashen face. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent and unwillingness. Chapter 6498. Yun Xiaoman almost subconsciously wanted to retort, but thinking that her life was still in the other party's hands, she could only forcibly swallow her unwillingness. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman looked at each other. The other party's conditions made them feel very humiliated. Even if it was just an apology, it was very shameful. Why don't you apologize first? As long as we get the antidote, we'll kill them. Guan Hongtian's eyes flashed with a scheming luster. The older the ginger, the spicier the ginger. At worst, he would admit defeat now. The other party only had 2 people. After all, they were weak. When the time comes to deal with them, wouldn't it be a simple matter? Guan Yi naturally understood that at present, besides this method, there was no other way. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only say, I'm sorry. Seeing that Guan Yi had already apologized, Yun Xiaoman quickly followed up, I'm sorry. Louder, my master can't hear. Xiao He heard the mosquito-like voice and couldn't help but say. Seeing that a contract beast actually dared to bully her, Yun Xiaoman's heart was even more unhappy. Her face was as red as a pig's liver, the surging anger in her eyes was about to erupt at any time. But, thinking of the poison line in her hands, her momentum weakened and she helplessly raised her voice. "I'm sorry." Only then did everyone hear it clearly. Seeing the two people apologizing like this, everyone sighed and shook their heads. This situation. Until the very last moment, no one knew what would happen. The speed of this turn of events was really surprising. Wanbao Pavilion has never suffered such a loss. This time they really lost face. They also didn't expect this to happen, but to be honest, this Guanhongtian is really too arrogant. If it wasn't for the fact that Wanbao Pavilion's things are really first class, I wouldn't be willing to buy it all. Then what can we do? Who told him to be the shopkeeper of Wanbao Pavilion? Seeing him suffer a loss today, I actually feel very happy. Is this okay? Guanhongtian looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, even if he knew that he should soften his tone, but when he spoke, there was still a bit of anger. At this time, Bewitching's deep eyes fell on him. What about you? What about you? Hearing this, Guanhongtian couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. Only then did he realize that Bewitching was saying that he hadn't apologized yet. You want me to apologize? Guanhongtian raised his voice. Disbelief was written all over his face. He was the shopkeeper of Wanbao Pavilion, as well as the elders of these two people. They actually want him to apologize to them? Is there a problem? Bewitching furrowed his brows and asked. It was a simple rhetorical question, but there was a hint of irrefutability in it. Don't go too far, Guanhongtian emphasized. It wasn't a big deal for the two juniors to apologize, but if he also apologized, then it would be a great loss of face. Is up. Bewitching didn't care. Instead, he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang gently. Wife, let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. Xiao He and Xiao Bai jumped onto their shoulders, intending to leave. Guanhongtian's subordinates looked up, unsure if they should stop them or not. Shopkeeper. Chapter 6499. Guanhongtian's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle as countless thoughts flashed through his mind. If he had enough time, he would like to find a physician to examine the situation. Perhaps a physician would be able to detoxify the poison. Unfortunately, he did not have time at all. Wait. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching were about to walk out of the encirclement, Guanhongtian's voice rang out. However, the two of them did not stop because of this and continued to walk forward. Guanhongtian's expression darkened when he saw that the two of them did not seem to care at all. He immediately quickened his pace and walked in front of the two of them. I apologize. Guanhongtian's face was filled with embarrassment, and indignation. However, he still blurted it out. I was in the wrong earlier. I apologize. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Guanhongtian indifferently and said, I only bought an elixir furnace from the Thousand Treasures Pavilion, but you still acted all high and mighty in front of me after I paid for it. As the shopkeeper, you should apologize properly. As the woman's clear and melodious voice fell, the crowd finally understood what was going on. I guess that Guanhongtian was being unreasonable first. His way of doing business is really admirable. I think the Thousand Treasures Pavilion is really blind. If someone else was the shopkeeper, their business would definitely be much better. It's no use even if you think it's a pity. Who asked Guanhongtian to be the shopkeeper? The crowd sighed and shook their heads. Everyone wanted to be the shopkeeper of the Thousand Treasures Pavilion. On one hand, it was a lucrative job. On the other hand, the shopkeeper was more powerful than others. If anything happened, he could even use the Thousand Treasures Pavilion's power. At the very least, with this identity, his status in Xiun City could be said to be very stable. Guanhongtian's expression darkened when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's lecturing words. However, the initiative was now in the other party's hands. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only suppress his anger. This is indeed my fault. Miss, you're a magnanimous person. Can you give me the antidote? Guanhongtian hid the viciousness in his eyes, and a pleading look appeared in his eyes. As long as he got the antidote, he would kill these two bastards. Do I have to forgive you just because you apologize? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and asked. Guanhongtian raised his head abruptly. He clearly noticed the mockery in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. His voice became low and suppressed. Are you playing with me? You owe us an apology. Isn't that what you should do? Bailey Hongzhuang said seriously. Her innocent look made it seem as if she was talking about the cycle of karma. It was a very normal thing. Looking at that extremely beautiful face, Guan Hongtian felt all of his anger being aroused. Don't go too far. Yun Xiaoman couldn't bear it anymore. She angrily pointed at Bailey Hongzhuang, her chest heaving up and down because of her anger. The immortal pill furnace has already been destroyed by you, and we've already apologized. What else do you want? As far as I know, we've already paid for this immortal pill furnace. Di Beichen's calm voice sounded. His eyes as deep as the night fell on Yun Xiaoman's body, revealing a kind of disdainful aura. Chapter 6500. Speaking of which, from the beginning to the end, you've been looking for trouble. If we weren't poisoned, would you let us go so easily? Under the starry sunshine, Bailey Hongzhuang's jade-like face glowed with a dazzling luster. A mocking smile bloomed on her lips, but it didn't affect her beauty at all. On the contrary, it added an indescribable charm, like a demon crystal in the forest, exuding a fatal charm. You have 3 days. If I see your sincerity in 3 days, I'll give you the antidote. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. After saying that, Bailey Hongzhuang held Di Beichen's hand and disappeared into the crowd. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Guan Tianyi leaving, Yun Xiaoman and the other two could only stand there in a daze. No matter how unwilling they were, their lives were in the hands of the other party. Don't worry. We'll find a doctor to check on you first. Maybe the antidote will be easy. Guan Hongtian looked at Guan Yi with concern. He felt that this woman was the real idiot. Once the antidote was cured, he would make her die without a burial place. Guan Yi nodded slightly. Uncle, I believe it can be cured. Uncle Guan, what if they take advantage of this opportunity to run away? The chaotic immortal domain is so big. If we can't find them, then this time? Yun Xiaoman's face was gloomy. Feeling the ridicule of the surrounding people, she only felt that she was going to die of anger. She had stayed in Xiyun City for so long, but she had never been so embarrassed. Guan Hongtian waved his hand indifferently. Xiaoman, don't worry. In this Xiyun City, Uncle Guan still has a certain amount of power. I've already sent people to watch them. They can't escape. Seeing this, Yun Xiaoman was a little relieved. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen went back. They felt that someone was following them, but they didn't have the slightest intention to point it out. After 3 days, Guan Hongtian and the other two would definitely come to find them. They had to let them know the address. Beichen, did you really break that immortal pill furnace? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichen with some confusion in her eyes. The quality of the immortal pill furnace was very good. Previously, when the immortal pill furnace was in Di Beichen's hands, she didn't pay too much attention to it. However, based on Guan Hongtian and the other two's reactions, she wasn't sure if they were being framed. It's broken. How did you break it? They used a formation to destroy the internal structure. Di Beichen looked casual. This was what Hongzhuang liked. Since he couldn't get it, he couldn't let it fall into the hands of that annoying woman. Bailey Hongzhuang secretly admired him. If Senior Zhongli knew about this matter, she didn't know whether he would be happy or helpless. After all, Bei Chen's array skills were truly at the point of perfection. To be able to do this in such a short period of time was indeed very impressive. When the time comes, do you really plan to give the antidote to them? Di Beichen raised his smoky eyebrows. A faint smile appeared on his lips, like layers of pear blossoms. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. When the time comes, we'll see how it goes. With their personalities, it's impossible for them to obediently submit. It's unavoidable to spend some effort. Chapter 6501. Master, I think they must be blind, Xiao He said. And they're not just blind, Xiao Bai added. Guan Hongtian immediately sent for a doctor to examine the poison in Yun Xiaoman and Xiao He. Dr. Su, is this poison easy to detoxify? Guan Hongtian asked with concern. With your medical skills, it should be easy to detoxify it, right? Dr. Su's face was full of confidence, as if he didn't care at all. Shopkeeper Guan, according to what you said, that woman is so young. Even if her medical skills are good, how good can they be? In my opinion, she should only be good at medicine in the lower realms. However, since the detoxification pill can't directly detoxify the poison, it can only be said that she has some ability. But in the chaotic immortal realm, that may not be the case. Guan Hongtian felt relieved when he heard the indifference in Dr. Su's voice. Dr. Su's medical skills were extremely outstanding in Shiyun City. Since he said it so casually, it should be easy to detoxify it. Yun Xiaoman immediately breathed a sigh of relief. After she was completely relieved, her words returned to their original arrogance. I knew it. That woman must be deliberately mystifying us, thinking that this kind of poison can completely frighten us. She said she would give us 3 days. I don't think we need 3 days at all. After a while, we'll have to kill her. Although Guani didn't say anything, his face was a little more relaxed. Previously, he felt that his life was in the hands of others, so he was a little worried. Now, he could finally rest assured. Dr. Su, why don't you take a look at my nephew first? Only when this poison is detoxified can we be completely at ease, Guan Hongtian said with a smile. Dr. Su nodded slightly. No problem. Let me take a look. Guan Yi immediately stretched out his hand. During this time, he had been paying attention to the black line in the center of his hand. He vaguely felt that the black line was gradually spreading. Although the spreading speed wasn't fast and it didn't look obvious, he still felt that there were some changes. Just as Guan Hongtian and the others were casually waiting for the detoxification result, they found that Dr. Su's originally calm face was gradually becoming serious. For a long time, Dr. Su's hand was still on Guan Yi's hand. He frowned and his face was full of contemplation. Sometimes he couldn't help but sigh, as if he had encountered something incredible. Most importantly, his face was getting darker and darker. Dr. Su, is there something wrong with this situation? Guan Hongtian was a shrewd person. Just by observing Dr. Su's expression, he could tell that something was amiss. Moreover, the fact that he hadn't spoken for so long meant that the situation might be more complicated than they thought. Hearing this, Dr. Su withdrew his hand. He looked at Guan Hongtian with a complicated expression. There was a hint of awkwardness and uneasiness in his expression. At this moment, his heart was also extremely tormented. He incomparably regretted the boast he had made earlier. Manager Guan, this poison is indeed strange. I've never seen such a strange pulse before. As soon as he said that, Guan Yi and the other two's expressions changed. Their faces were filled with disbelief. For a moment, Yun Xiaoman even thought that she must have misheard. Dr. Su, what did you say? What does that mean? Chapter 6502. So that's how it is. Then it should only take some effort. Guan Hongtian quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as they can still find a way, it means that there is a possibility of a solution. It's better than not having any ideas at all. Dr. Su, I wonder if this poison can be detoxified within 3 days? Guan Yi asked tentatively. Bailey Hongzhuang only gave them 3 days. If they can't detoxify it within these 3 days, then it means that they can only go to the door and beg for mercy. This is obviously something they are unwilling to do. Hearing this, Dr. Su's complexion changed a bit. He then said, Shopkeeper Guan, this poison is indeed a bit strange. I'm afraid the composition is not simple. Although I don't understand this poison, but I observed the poison thread in young Master Guan's hand. The other side also proposed 3 days. If I didn't guess wrong, this poison thread should be unspeakable. It should slowly go from the palm to the arm. After 3 days, that will be the time of death. So, I think it's best that you find a few more doctors. Maybe there are people who have come in contact with this poison before. It will be easier to deal with it. Even if he is unwilling to admit that the other side's poison skills are already very shocking, this matter is related to Guan Yi's life, so Dr. Su can only tell the truth. Even if he feels that it is possible to judge from this poison blood, but in fact he himself doesn't have much confidence. He himself has already lost so much face. If he finds 2 more people to take the fall, it won't be too embarrassing. However, when Dr. Su's words fell into the ears of Guan Hongtian and the other 2, it brought them too much shock. They don't dare to believe that everything Bailey Hongzhuang said is actually true. That woman? No wonder she was so confident in giving us 3 days. It turns out that she has already calculated everything. Guan Hongtian's mood at this moment is also very complicated. These 2 young people who don't seem to have any strength, he didn't expect their methods to completely exceed his expectations. Yun Xiaoman's face is ashen. Her hands gradually exert strength. The bones of her fingers are also somewhat white. She can't believe that woman's methods are actually so superb. In fact, she is also an alchemist. This time, she went to buy an immortal pill furnace in order to learn how to refine immortal pills. The alchemy skills she has currently mastered are only from the lower planes. But facing this poison, she doesn't have the slightest method to detoxify it. Long before Dr. Su came, she had already examined herself. She only felt that this poison was extremely strange, beyond the scope of her usual understanding. He originally thought that it would be easy with the help of the celestial doctor. However, he did not expect that even the celestial doctor would be stumped. Guan Hongtian didn't waste any time and immediately went to invite other doctors. Even if it would cost a lot to hire these doctors, it would still be better than begging Bailey Hongzhuang for mercy. Because not only would he lose face, the other party would also take the opportunity to demand an exorbitant price. That night, the Guan family was very lively. At the same time, the news that the Guan family had invited many doctors quickly spread throughout Shiyun City. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang said those words, everyone was extremely curious. They didn't know if the poison was really that powerful. Because of that, many people were paying close attention to what would happen next. The next day, everyone's expression changed when they heard that the Guan family was still looking for a doctor. Chapter 6503. At first, I thought the woman was just joking. Maybe she would take this opportunity to run away. Now, it seems that's not the case. So many doctors have gathered in the Guan residence, but they haven't left yet. This means that the poison hasn't been cured yet. That woman is so young, but her poison skills are so powerful. If all the doctors can't cure the poison, then this is going to be a good show. Most of the cultivators in Shiyun City were just watching the show. If the other party wasn't Guan Hongtian, perhaps they wouldn't have paid so much attention. However, everyone was very interested in this eye-catching person. When Ziren and the others found out about this, their faces were filled with astonishment. Hongzhuang and the others are really unusual. They've just arrived in the realm of chaotic immortals, and they've already caused such a big commotion. Ziren sighed and shook his head. It was a pity that they didn't participate in such a big event. Actually, I think that Hongzhuang and Bewitching have the ability to attract hatred. Even if they don't cause trouble, someone will. Shangguan Yingying shrugged. Perhaps this was the trouble of geniuses? She had been training with Hongzhuang and the others for a long time. Most of the time, they didn't take the initiative to cause trouble. It was as if the other party had eyes in the back of their heads and would always cause trouble for them. Hi, you're right, Ziren chuckled. Just wait and see. Yunjue and the others will be very helpless when they find out. In fact, whether it was Mo Yunjue's group or Bai Li Yanche's group, they couldn't help but sigh when they heard the news. When Hongzhuang left the restaurant, she reminded them to be careful and not get into trouble. In the blink of an eye, they got into trouble first. Moreover, the other party was the famous Wanbao Pavilion. While the outside world was spreading the news, the people involved, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching, were quietly staying in the room. If they went out now, they would definitely attract a lot of attention. Rather than that, they might as well cultivate here first. I originally wanted to exchange for some blood spirit stones, but now I don't need them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the blood spirit stone in her hand, and a smile appeared on her lips. Back in the abandoned immortal forest, blood spirit stones were a very rare resource. However, the elders had a lot of them, so it didn't affect their cultivation. Now that they were out, they would have to deal with the issue of cultivation resources themselves. My wife has always been resourceful. Di Baichen smiled faintly and handed the dessert to Bailey Hongzhuang. Try it. Bailey Hongzhuang took a piece of sparkling and translucent pastry, the sweet taste filling her mouth. Her eyes narrowed slightly, the corners of her lips hooked up in a happy arc. Not bad. Master, will they really send cultivation resources over when the time comes? Xiao He jumped on the table and quietly reached out her paw to take a piece of dessert. Isn't that obvious? Xiao Bai rolled her eyes. Mistress is so confident. Does it even need to be said? The doctors in Shiyun City definitely can't compare. That's not necessarily true. There will always be someone better than you. Bailey Hongzhuang looked thoughtful. In fact, the poison she used this time wasn't taught to her by Granny Hua. Chapter 6504. Although Bailey Hongzhuang did not know if anyone could cure the poison, at least this poison had never appeared before. Therefore, even if the other party's medical skills were extraordinary, it would take a long time to cure the poison. Therefore, the situation was obvious. Just as everyone was talking, there was a sudden knock on the door. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen heard the knock, they could not help but look at each other with a trace of doubt in their eyes. Logically speaking, when she had stayed for 3 days, Guan Hongtian and the others should have stubbornly refused to turn back. It was impossible for them to come looking for them so soon. Could it be that something went wrong? Could it be that the other doctors caused the poison to act up? Xiao He looked confused. They had just arrived, so other than Guan Hongtian and the others, no one should have come to look for them. Could it be that something happened to the others? Xiao Bai said worriedly. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen heard this, their faces darkened slightly. Comparing the two situations, the second situation was more likely to happen. However, today was only their second day in Shiyun City. It was strange that they had gotten into trouble so quickly. If the others were the same, it would be a group of people. When Di Baichen opened the door, he heard an unfamiliar voice. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the unfamiliar fat man in front of her. Not only did the suspicion in her heart not disappear, but it also increased. However, as long as no one else was in trouble, they could be at ease. Who are you? Di Baichen asked in a deep voice. Now that they were the center of everyone's discussion, it was very unlikely that the other party had come to look for the wrong people. The fat man's face was full of smiles. His originally round face became even more joyful, and his eyes were narrowed into slits. Sorry to disturb you, but can I come in and talk? When Bailey Hongzhuang heard this, they looked at the man with a suspicious look on their faces. They did not intend to let him in. In the realm of chaos, no one knew when a peerless powerhouse would appear. Although they still had some confidence in their own strength in Shiyun City, it didn't mean that they could be completely unscrupulous. Who knew what the other party was planning to do by coming over at such a sensitive time? The fatty clearly understood that the two of them didn't trust him at all. He couldn't help but say, "Look at my face. Does it look like I have any killing power?" Smiling tiger. Di Baichen coldly spat out these 3 words. Fatty's face stiffened, and he said awkwardly, "All right, I know you guys don't believe me, but I really don't have any bad intentions. To tell you the truth, Guan Hongtian and I are sworn enemies. As the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Why don't we work together?" However, no matter how much Fatty said, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen remained unmoved. What I said is true. If you don't believe me, you can ask anyone in Shiyun City. The conflict between me and Guan Hongtian has existed for a long time. Many people know about it. I'm really not lying to you. Just believe me. Then how do you want me to prove it? Facing the 2 icy faces in front of him, Fatty felt a chill run down his spine, as if a cold wind was blowing past him. What a sin. Chapter 6505. So. Di Baichen looked indifferently at the anxious man in front of him. After the other party had said so much, he believed that what the other party said was not false. Because that sincere and anxious look was not an act. Moreover, just like what he said, as long as they casually asked around, they would be able to find out the truth. If it was a lie, it would be easily exposed. What did this have to do with them? Fatty was trying his best to explain. trying to convince Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang that everything he said was true. Suddenly hearing Di Baichen's words, he was momentarily stunned. So? Looking at Fatty's confused look, Di Baichen asked again, "What does everything you said have to do with us?" "That's why we have a chance to completely destroy Guanhong Tian if we work together." Fatty's face was serious. "They bullied you so much, how can you just take it lying down? Even if they really come to apologize 3 days later, that's absolutely not allowed. Don't you think so?" Bailey Hongzhuang kept looking at the fat man in front of her. Looking at his righteous indignation, she slowly asked, "Why not?" Offending Wanbao Pavilion was not a wise move for them at the moment. Although Guanhong Tian was only a shopkeeper in Shiyun City, the Wanbao Pavilion would definitely not care about his life or death. However, if he died, it would mean that they were looking down on Wanbao Pavilion's strength. Because of this, Wanbao Pavilion would definitely not sit idly by. Yesterday's incident was indeed an accident. She did not intend to really offend such a huge figure. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Fatty was once again stunned. He stared blankly at her for a long while before he understood what she meant. For a moment, he was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Jumping 3 feet high, he said agitatedly, "How can that be? They bullied you so much. If we let them get away with it, wouldn't it be a waste? They were the ones who suffered losses yesterday." Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged nonchalantly. She didn't know why, but looking at this fatty's anxious appearance, it was indeed quite funny. "That may be the case, but once you give them the antidote, they will definitely kill you. If you don't give them the antidote, they will kill you. If you want to change this outcome, the method is right in front of you, as long as you cooperate with me. You don't have to go through so much trouble." Bailey Hongzhuang crossed her arms in front of her chest and leaned against the door with a faint smile on her face. "I can poison it again." Fatty didn't know what to say. Why was the situation in front of him completely different from what he had imagined? Why were these two fellows speaking so casually, as if what they were talking about had nothing to do with them? Under his provocation, shouldn't they be as indignant as he was? Most importantly, the answers of these two people were more speechless than the other. How was he supposed to continue speaking? "Are you done?" Di Baichen asked as he looked at the fatty who was at his wit's end. "Ah." Just as Fatty was thinking about what to say, he suddenly found the door in front of him closed. Bang! Crisp and efficient, without the slightest bit of mercy. Hey, I'm not done yet. Listen to me first." Chapter 6506. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen returned to the house, but their gazes were still fixed on the courtyard's wall. Bang! The fatty flipped over the wall and entered the courtyard. Before he could breathe a sigh of relief, he noticed 2 pairs of eyes staring straight at him. Hee. The fatty laughed awkwardly and scratched his head. "Can the 2 of you listen to what I have to say? Actually, I'm very sincere." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She could feel his sincerity, but it was meaningless to them. "After talking for so long, what do you want?" "I want to open a shop." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. "If you want to open one, then open one. To tell you the truth, Guanhong Tian and I have long had a grudge. Back then, I should have been the shopkeeper of this Wanbao Pavilion, but that despicable Guanhong Tian spent a lot of money to bribe others. I always thought that this matter was set in stone, but who would have thought that something like this would happen in the end? After it happened, I was very dissatisfied and wanted to settle the score with Guanhong Tian, but that guy was a typical example of a dead pig not being afraid of boiling water. Not only did he not admit his mistake, he was very arrogant. I couldn't take this lying down. Over the years, I've thought of some ways to change this, but in the end, it didn't work." When the fatty spoke of this, his expression became even more serious than before, as if he had thought of something very sad. His originally happy face had unknowingly become lonely and desolate. His hands gradually clenched, his knuckles turning white. Vaguely, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen felt that there might be something more to this, but the fatty's words stopped here. "Wanbao Pavilion is a big business. A shopkeeper in Cloud City is already a very important position in our eyes, but to Wanbao Pavilion, even if there is a mistake, they will let it continue. No matter how unwilling I am, I understand that there is nothing I can do. The fatty's gaze gradually became firm. His eyes were clearly a pair of squinting eyes, but at this moment, they bloomed with infinite vigor. So, if I want to open a shop, at least in Cloud City, I have to defeat Wanbao Pavilion. Otherwise, I will not be able to breathe freely. Looking at the man's ambition, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly moved. She had to admit that this idea sounded very good, but Wanbao Pavilion was a big business, and many of its products came from the immortal realm. It was too difficult for him to defeat Wanbao Pavilion. In fact, as long as you are strong enough, you can defeat Guan Hongtian. That should be easier than defeating Wanbao Pavilion, right? That won't do. The fatty, he shook his head. Where he's from. Where I lost. If I win it back using other means, what's the point? Actually, what I like the most is doing business. Back when I was in the lower plains, I had always taken the route of doing business. Really? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. Usually, you spend your energy on business. How did you cultivate step by step to come to the immortal realm? This is also something I didn't expect. I have been aiming to do business since I was young. When I was 5 years old, I showed a business mind. Then it got out of hand. Chapter 6507. Actually, I don't have many hobbies. My biggest hobby is doing business. I think it's the most interesting thing. However, as my business gets better and better, the food I eat also gets better and better. In the past, I used to be a handsome man. Gradually, I became like this. It's not difficult for me to get some heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Gradually, my cultivation base also became stronger and stronger. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and even Di Beichen had a hint of emotion on their faces. As expected, there were all kinds of strange things in this world. Even the methods of ascension were different. Compared to their hard work in cultivation, the fatty's method of ascension was too easy. However, they did not doubt the authenticity of his words. For most cultivators, money was not the most important thing in the end. However, if a person's wealth was unimaginable, he could improve his strength quickly by relying on heavenly materials and earthly treasures. After all, a person who cultivated diligently without any cultivation resources could not compare to someone who ate pills like candy. Ever since I came to the realm of chaotic immortals, I felt that I could start all over again. In the past, I had already made it to this level. There was nothing I wanted to do. The situation in the realm of chaotic immortals is quite different from the lower realms. I could definitely achieve great things here. Therefore, I went to fight for the position of shopkeeper in the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. However, who would have thought that something like that would happen and ruin my plan? Everything became meaningless now. The fatty sighed. The dejected look on his face was not an act. This really made him depressed. So, what does this have to do with us? Di Beichen asked slowly. Now, they understood the fatty's dream. However, the fatty wanted to open a shop. What did it have to do with them? It has to do with us. Of course, it has to do with us. Seeing that Di Beichen seemed to be moved by his words, the fatty's voice became a little more excited. He quickly walked to Di Beichen's side and said with a smile, "I've heard about what happened yesterday. I heard that you have a lot of medicinal pills and immortal talismans on you. To tell you the truth, I've already opened a shop right across from the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion, so I clearly saw the situation at that time. Although I wholeheartedly want to defeat him, I have to admit that the things in the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion are not something I can compare to. Usually, the things sold in my shop are consigned by some cultivators, and the level of these things is not high, so they can't compete with the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion. But, if you cooperate with me, then everything might be different." The fatty's eyes shone brightly. Chapter 6508. You two are the most suitable candidates. How could Fatty give up? He had been searching for a long time but had not found a suitable partner. Now that he had found these two, if he let them leave, it would be difficult to find them again in the future. There's no need to say more. We are indeed not interested in this. Di Beichen's voice was cold. They had never been interested in doing business. Just as Hong Zhuang had said, although they were temporarily staying in Xi'an City, no one knew how long they would stay. Based on their past experiences, they would usually leave after a short period of time. Despite Fatty's constant struggle, Bewitching still refused to let him in. Hearing the wailing outside the door, Xiaohei could not help but tremble. She had goosebumps. This guy is really persistent. But after being rejected like this, he probably won't come again, right? Not to mention Master, just watching from the side was unbearable. This guy was simply, I don't think so. Master rejected it so decisively. Little White replied. However, the situation was completely different from what they had expected. The next day, Fatty appeared again with the same flattering smile on his face. He first knocked on the door. When he saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaohei had no intention of opening the door for him, he climbed over the wall and entered. Both of you, I am very sincere. If you don't believe me, you can see that I have already formulated an excellent plan. As long as you are willing, we can achieve this goal very quickly. I promise that as long as you give me the immortal pills and immortal talismans, I will definitely help you earn enough blood spirit stones. As for the money earned, how about we split it 50-50? How about 30-70? 20-80? This ratio is really too high. After all, I have to put in a lot of effort to run the shop. All right. If it really doesn't work, you can split it 90% and I'll split it 10%. How about that? I say, you can't go overboard. You can't expect me to work for free, right? You should leave. Bang! The door to the courtyard closed, and the courtyard became quiet. Who said that one woman is equal to 3 ducks? I think Fatty alone is worth 100 ducks. Bailey Hongzhuang had a helpless look on her face. She felt that ever since Fatty appeared, she had never been able to enjoy the tranquil fruit. For the first time, she felt that silence was so wonderful. On the 3rd day, Fatty appeared on time once again. With the lesson from the day before, he no longer knocked on the door. Instead, he directly climbed over the wall and entered the courtyard. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, a pure smile appeared on his face. However, the two of them were very clear that this guy was absolutely not pure and kind at all. Tell me, isn't this considered 3 visits to the thatched cottage? It's time for you to promise me. Chapter 6509. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Yun Ruoyan were listening to Fatty's sales pitch, Guan Hongtian and the others were feeling extremely heavy. Today was the 3rd day. They had spent so much time and invited so many immortal pharmacists, but the result was still the same. They were helpless. Even though everyone had tried their best to research and develop several antidotes, they were still unable to detoxify the poison. What a bunch of trash! Guan Hongtian couldn't help but curse. In these 3 days, his mood had been getting heavier and heavier. He couldn't believe that with so many people working together, they couldn't even detoxify a little girl's poison. If word got out, it would be a joke. In fact, they had already become a laughingstock. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman looked at the poison in their hands and recalled the immortal pharmacist's warning. Once the poison spread to their arms, they wouldn't be able to keep their lives. There was only a short time left, but according to the immortal pharmacist's performance, the possibility of detoxifying the poison was close to 0. Uncle Guan, what do we do now? Yun Xiaoman's face was pale. If we can't satisfy that woman, won't Brother Yi and I have to die? Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you. Guan Hongtian's face was solemn. What happened this time made him feel deeply ashamed. However, he was now a fish on the chopping block. Since he couldn't detoxify the poison, he could only think of a way to get the antidote. Uncle, what do you plan to do? Guan Yi looked at Guan Hongtian worriedly. No matter if it's that man or woman, they don't seem to be easy to deal with. After what happened last time, they are very jealous of us. This time, they might ask for an exorbitant price. Noticing Guan Yi's worried expression, Guan Hongtian's heart warmed. He patted him on the shoulder and said in an affirmative tone, Don't worry. Leave this matter to me. Hearing this, Guan Yi's heart also warmed. How could he not understand? Things had already come to this point. If his uncle wanted to show his sincerity, he would have to take out a lot of precious things. Only then would Bailey Hongzhuang give them the antidote. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have invited these immortal medicine masters over, wasting resources for nothing. Guan Hongtian sighed. He had spent a lot of money just to invite these immortal pharmacists. Yet, none of the problems were solved. Yun Xiaoman's face is also gloomy. The medical skills of these immortal medicine masters are really too poor. They can't even detoxify a little girl's poison, really unlucky. Guan Hongtian faintly glanced at Yun Xiaoman, his heart also somewhat complaining. If it wasn't for Yun Xiaoman, such a thing wouldn't have happened this time. An immortal pill furnace was definitely not something that Ear needed. Now that things had come to this point, she was still criticizing others. Chapter 65:10. Inside the house, Fatty was still eloquent. In order to increase his persuasiveness, he even brought up some examples of his past business experiences. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and Gun Yanji felt that this fellow was too long-winded, they had to admit that his business acumen was indeed impressive. However, this also proved that the Fatty was a shrewd fellow. All businessmen were unscrupulous. It was easy to imagine that he was able to achieve such great success in the business world. Suddenly, a series of footsteps were heard outside the door. Then, there was a knock on the door. Hearing this, the corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. It seems that the person we've been waiting for is here. Bewitching looked at the sky. Indeed, these fellows would not believe it until the very last moment. Fatty originally had some doubts, but he quickly reacted to the identity of the person who had just arrived. He immediately rushed in front of Bewitching and ran into the courtyard like a dog's leg. "Boss, just leave the small matter of opening the door to me. I'll do it. Fatty's face was full of smiles. The way he followed Bewitching wholeheartedly showed that he already regarded Bewitching as his own boss. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other. Fatty was indeed a first-class businessman. His personality was incomparable to others. As the Fatty approached the courtyard gate, his expression turned gloomy. Guan Hongtian. After waiting for so long, they finally saw this fellow suffer. Creak. The courtyard door slowly opened. Guan Hongtian and the other two had smiles on their faces when they heard the footsteps. Since they were here to ask for medicine, they naturally had to welcome them with smiles. However, as soon as the door was opened, Guan Hongtian saw a face he did not expect. "Gongjun? What are you doing here?" Guan Hongtian's face immediately turned cold. For a moment, he even suspected that he had come to the wrong place. Almost everyone knew about the dispute between him and Gongjun. What he did at that time was indeed disgraceful, but as the saying goes, all is fair in war. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. However, this Gongjun just couldn't be serious about this matter. Originally, he thought that it would be fine after a while. Who would have thought that this guy was so stubborn in this aspect? Not only did he make this matter known to everyone, he even opened another shop opposite the Wanbao Pavilion. Fortunately, this guy's foundation couldn't be compared to the Wanbao Pavilion, but this guy still slapped him in the face. For a moment, the eyes of the enemies blazed with hatred when they met. Guani was also a little surprised. Although he hadn't been in Shiyun City for long, the person in front of him was no stranger at all. "Why can't I be here?" Gongjun's face was filled with pride as he looked at Guan Hongtian with disdain. "You dare to offend my boss? You're really an idiot. Who's your boss?" Guan Hongtian frowned. Gongjun's inexplicable appearance here was already very strange, and now he said something like this. Usually, he was very concerned about this sworn enemy of his, but he had never heard of this guy acknowledging someone as his boss. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching slowly walked over. Gongjun immediately walked to Bewitching's side and said, "This is my boss." Bewitching turned to look at Gongjun, only to see that this guy's face was filled with pride, without the slightest bit of guilt. Though, it was as if he had really accepted him as a little brother. "Don't you think it's a little insincere for you to only bring these things here?" Guan Hongtian's face turned cold. "What's wrong with me? These things are already a lot. Take them out and ask other people. Isn't it enough? Ha! Gong Jun smiled faintly. His narrowed eyes flashed with shrewdness. These things are indeed a lot for other people, but who are you? You're the shopkeeper of the Wanbao Pavilion. With your wealth, these things are just a drop in the ocean. He had no choice but to pay a huge price to obtain the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. He wanted to take the opportunity to increase his strength. If he had to hand this thing over, he would definitely vomit blood. Gong Jun wasn't surprised by Guan Hongtian's objection. Guan Hong, so, you're going to give up the lives of your nephew and this young lady? Gong Jun raised his eyebrows and said casually, that's true. The other party is only your nephew. Why do you have to sacrifice so much? As a cultivator, the most practical thing is to increase your cultivation. His mocking words were like sharp blades that provoked Guan Hongtian. If he could, he wished that he could slap this despicable guy to death. Chapter 65:13. Since you don't want to, then please see them out. Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang turned around at the same time, clearly not willing to listen to anything else. Seeing Gong Jun about to close the door, Guan Hongtian hurriedly said, don't go too far. If we give up, then you won't have any cultivation resources left. Are you kidding? Does my boss look like someone who lacks these things? Gong Jun looked at Guan Hongtian with disdain. Don't look down on people like a dog. The courtyard door gradually closed. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yun Ruoyan didn't have the slightest intention of relenting. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman's hearts had already sunk. If they missed today, they would really only have a dead end. Just as the door was about to close, Guan Hongtian seemed to have made a shocking decision and said, okay. I promise you. After saying that, Guan Hongtian seemed to have aged a few decades in an instant. His whole person became dispirited. The door creaked open, and what came into view was Gong Jun's joyful smile. Just that. Don't mention how dazzling that smile was. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other. They didn't think that Guan Hongtian would go to this extent for Guan Yi. After all, many people don't care about the life and death of others for their own benefit, not to mention. Guan Yi wasn't even his son. Hee, wouldn't it have been better if Guan Hongtian had agreed earlier? Why bother doing this? Gong Jun said with a smile, come, please come in. Looking at the man's flattering appearance, Guan Hongtian felt as disgusted as if he had eaten a fly. Guan Hongtian, such an important thing, I think you should have it with you, right? Guan Hongtian's face was ashen, but since he had already made a decision, he slowly took out the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. It's all here, now can you give us the antidote? Of course, we always keep our promises. Gong Jun turned his head to look at Bailey Hongzhuang, only to see her throw a porcelain bottle directly at him. After receiving the bottle, Gong Jun handed it over to Guan Hongtian. Seeing this, Guan Hongtian didn't delay and immediately gave the antidote to Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman. Until the poison in their hands began to dissipate, he finally let out a sigh of relief. In the next moment, a sinister look appeared in his eyes. It's not that easy to take my things. Guan Yi stood beside Guan Hongtian. You've gone too far. Not only poison but also take the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine, give it back. At the same time, there's this facing us boss, I told you, this guy is definitely not that honest. Gong Jun clicked his tongue. It's been so long but your temperament hasn't changed at all. It seems that you haven't suffered enough this time. Chapter 65:14. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's nonchalant words, Guan Hongtian and the other two were petrified. Wasn't this like the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind? They were scheming against each other, and each other was scheming against them. Most importantly, they had already handed over the antidote, so why was it returned to its original position? How could you do this? Guan Hongtian cursed. This was driving him crazy. In the end, it's all because of shopkeeper Guan's character. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes were slightly raised, but there wasn't the slightest bit of warmth in them. Originally, I planned to give you the antidote if shopkeeper Guan left obediently. But now it seems that I was prepared. Guan Hongtian's face was ashen. His eyes fell on Gong Jun. He believed that this had something to do with Gong Jun. "Young master, young lady, I only did this out of anger. Why don't you let me go? I promise that something like this will never happen again." Guan Hongtian had no choice but to speak softly. He had already been squeezed dry of everything he could offer. If this happened again, he would be driven crazy. "Shopkeeper Guan, don't you think it's ridiculous to say this now?" Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. She also felt that this matter was troublesome. If the other party wasn't the shopkeeper of Wan Bao Pavilion, it would be fine to kill him. However, he had such a powerful force behind him. Killing him would be troublesome. At this moment, Gong Jun suddenly came to Di Beichen's side and said with a smile, "Boss, madam, I have a plan, can it work?" "Go ahead," Di Beichen said indifferently. Originally, he didn't take Gong Jun seriously. However, after what happened just now, he realized that this guy was quite capable. If he could come up with a good idea, then it would be good. It's like this. As Gong Jun explained his plan, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's eyes lit up. They had to admit that this was a good idea. Guan Hongtian's face darkened. He knew that Gong Jun was up to no good when he saw the look on his face. A moment later, Gong Jun said, "Shopkeeper Guan, although you were in the wrong first, my boss is magnanimous and doesn't intend to hold it against you." Hearing this, Guan Hongtian was slightly stunned. He didn't expect such a surprise. "If anyone dares to attack my boss and madam, then they will be against you. If anything happens to them, even if you have to give up your position as the shopkeeper, you must kill them." Gong Jun smiled and said, "How is it? You don't need to do anything. You just need to say a few words. Isn't it simple?" Looking at the other party's expression, Guan Hongtian wanted to vomit blood. Indeed, it was only a few words. After saying this, it was equivalent to completely eliminating the possibility of him attacking. Because, if he attacked again, it would be equivalent to slapping his own face. Chapter 65:15. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't have to worry about what happened next. This was because Gong Jun had already taken all the responsibility for this matter. He even patted his chest and promised that he would handle this matter properly. Early the next morning, that round figure had already appeared in the courtyard. After the events of the past few days, they had already gotten used to Gong Jun's daily appearance and didn't find it strange to see him climbing over the wall. "Boss, madam, Guan Hongtian has already spread the news, we can rest assured now." Gong Jun smiled. "Based on that fellow's character, he won't cause any more trouble this time, but he asked me to ask you when you'll give him the antidote." "I didn't poison him at all." Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. What? Gong Jun was stunned. "If I wanted to poison him, I could have done it right in front of him. Why would I go through so much trouble?" Ruyu's pretty face was full of carelessness. "I planned to poison him yesterday. I didn't expect them to agree without any suspicion, so why waste my poison powder?" Gong Jun stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang for a long while. It was precisely because her methods had completely shocked Guan Hongtian that they didn't even let the immortal medicine masters take a look when they returned. Even if they said that he wasn't poisoned, he probably wouldn't believe them. Because the previous poisoning incident had already proved that Bailey Hongzhuang's poison skills were much stronger than those people's. "Madam, you're too smart." Gong Jun's face was full of surprise. "I thought I was already a profiteer. I didn't expect you to be even more profiteer than me, huh?" Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched. "Profiteer. This shouldn't be a good word, right? Then I'll go tell Guan Hongtian this news. I'll make sure he dies from anger." Seeing Gong Jun run out again, Bailey Hongzhuang looked worried. She turned to look at the man beside her. "Beichen, will he be okay if he goes alone?" Yesterday, Guan Hongtian had been caught red-handed. Naturally, there was nothing he could do. Now that he knew there was no such evidence, no one knew what he would do in a fit of anger. "Don't worry. Since he's been fighting with Guan Hongtian for so long and is still safe and sound, it proves that he has some tricks up his sleeve." Di Beichen smiled and placed his hands on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulders, massaging them. "You haven't had a good rest because this guy comes here every day. Do you want to take a rest?" The man's hands seemed to have magical powers. His gentle and light touch made her entire body relax. "No need. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. I'm not that weak. By the way, Gong Jun, what do you plan to do? Bailey Hongzhuang leaned on Di Beichen's legs and looked at him curiously. Gong Jun had put in a lot of effort this time. If they didn't agree to his request, it would indeed be unreasonable. He's already called me that so smoothly. Smoothly? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. She immediately understood that Di Beichen was referring to Gong Jun calling him boss every day. At first, she thought it was a little strange, but as she listened, she gradually got used to it. Actually, Gong Jun is quite smart. With him handling these matters, we don't have to worry too much. Chapter 65-16. The hall was shrouded in demonic qi. It was a terrifying black, dotted with dazzling gold and red. A woman sat quietly in the hall. Her peerlessly fair face was graceful and luxurious. Under the contrast of her black and red dress, her smooth jade-like legs were faintly revealed, making her look even more seductive and alluring. The woman was as cold as ice and her eyes were filled with an everlasting chill. Have you found any news? First Princess, we have already sent people out to look for him. But you know the situation of that barrier. It's not easy to break it. The man half knelt on the ground with a worried look on his face. That's not what I want to hear. I only want results. The woman waved her long sleeves. Her already cold face became even colder. Could it be, your subordinates are a bunch of trash? I have waited for so many years. If I miss this opportunity, I will bury all of you. The man shuddered and hurriedly said, First Princess, we have been trying to find a way to break this barrier all these years. Now we are getting closer and closer. Thanks to Third Princess's efforts, a small crack has appeared in the barrier. Someone has broken through. The woman crossed her legs. Her beautiful jade-like legs made one's mouth go dry. However, the man didn't even dare to look at them. He just lowered his head. This terrifying pressure made him feel extremely terrified. Who's the one who broke out? The man's body kept trembling. He wanted to say the result but was worried that the First Princess would be furious. The woman glanced at the man indifferently. She already understood. Speed up. If anything happens to him, you should know the consequences. Understood, understood. This subordinate understands. Boss, madam, you didn't see Guan Hongtian's expression. It was so wonderful. Gong Jun was happy. He had been suppressed by Guan Hongtian for so long. This time, he finally had a chance to hold his head high. Just thinking about it made him happy. Since the matter has been resolved, why did you come here today? Gong Jun was slightly stunned. He immediately said with a bitter face, Boss, you can't turn your back on me. I've risked my life to do so many things for you. If you kick me away just like that, wouldn't that be too heartless? Risking my life? Isn't that right? Guan Hongtian hated me now. If he knew that the boss was no longer protecting me, he would definitely take the opportunity to kill me. Why is my life so bitter? Gong Jun sat down on the ground. He was obviously acting like a rogue. As long as Di Beichen didn't agree, he wouldn't get up today. Get up. I won't get up if you don't agree. Are you sure you don't want to get up? Di Beichen squinted at Gong Jun. I won't. Before Gong Jun could finish his words, he realized that something was wrong. He immediately got up with a smile on his face. Get up, get up. Chapter 65-17. Gong Jun was a little disappointed. He'd been prepared to take advantage of this opportunity to make a big splash. Sure enough, this matter wasn't important to his boss at all. But that didn't matter. He just needed to take care of this shop. It would come in handy one day. Gong Jun, I'll leave this to you. Bailey Hongzhuang handed a Qianquan pouch to Gong Jun. What's this? Gong Jun took the Qianquan pouch in a daze. In fact, he'd been in a daze ever since his boss had agreed to let him follow him. Before coming here today, he'd been worried that he'd be rejected again. After all, this matter had already been dealt with. However, he'd been prepared to pester his boss to the bitter end. Now that he'd been accepted, he was a little confused. This situation was much simpler than he'd thought. Looking at the man's godlike face, Gong Jun couldn't help but sigh inwardly. No matter what, this was good news. Why are you in a daze? Bailey Hongzhuang saw Gong Jun staring at Di Beichen in a daze. She couldn't help but wave her hand in front of his face. Are you in a daze? You're not a girl. How can you be so entranced by Di Beichen? Di Beichen glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang helplessly. She really dared to say anything now. Gong Jun snapped out of his daze and smiled. I just can't believe this is all real. Ha. When he saw the contents of the Qiankuan pouch, Gong Jun was pleasantly surprised. His face was full of disbelief. These things are all for me to sell? Of course. Di Beichen replied. These things aren't very high grade, but they should be enough for ordinary cultivators in Shiyun City. Of course. Gong Jun's face was full of excitement. Normally, people only use first-grade immortal pills and first-grade immortal talismans. There were rank 1, rank 2, and rank 3 here. Guanhongtian's Wanbao Pavilion only sold these. Although we have less variety compared to them, I am confident that we will be able to defeat them. Boss, madam, don't worry, I won't let you down. We believe in you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Previously, when she and Beichen were in the abandoned immortal forest, she had learned alchemy and rune techniques. Therefore, she had kept many Tier 1 and Tier 2 alchemists. Originally, they thought that they wouldn't need it for the time being. Now that Gong Jun's shop happened to need it, they might as well take it out. Boss, aren't you worried that I'll run away with the items? Gong Jun couldn't help but ask. With so many items, their value wasn't low. If you use people, don't doubt them. If you doubt them, don't use them. Di Beichen looked at Gong Jun. If you really run away, then I'll treat it as if I've misjudged you. As soon as Di Beichen finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that Gong Jun was standing there without saying anything. She was a little confused. With this guy's personality, it was impossible for him to be silent for so long. When she turned her eyes, she found that Gong Jun's eyes were red as he looked at Di Beichen, and she was immediately dumbfounded. Gong Jun, you don't tell me you're going to cry? Gong Jun blinked and said excitedly, Heavens, I'm so touched. I've been alone since I came to the realm of chaotic immortal. I don't have any friends. Now that I have a boss and he trusts me so much, how can I not be touched? Well, the heavens really have eyes. Chapter 65-18. After Gong Jun received the immortal pills and immortal talismans, he busied himself with managing the store. In his own words, he would definitely use the store's results to prove his ability and let everyone wait for his results. Regarding this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were not worried. They believed that Gong Jun had the ability to do so. Moreover, even if the business did not do well, it would not be a big deal. Di Beichen, I've studied this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. Coincidentally, Gong Jun also sent over the other medicinal ingredients that I needed. I plan to refine it into an elixir. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine in her hand. This thing's effects should be very good, which was why Guanhongtian treasured it so much. However, although this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine's medicinal effects are very good, if too many elixirs are refined, the effects will be greatly reduced. I've thought about it, and in order to maximize the effects of this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine, I can only refine 3 elixirs at most. Maintaining the medicinal effects is the most important. Di Beichen nodded. If they ignored the medicinal effects for the sake of quantity, it would be a waste of this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down on Di Beichen's lap and wrapped her arms around the man's slender neck with a slight smile on her lips. The man who was originally abstinent suddenly became charming and gentle. He reached out and clasped the woman's head and kissed her. The woman's small face flushed red. I'm talking business with you. Are you sure you're using this posture to talk business with me? Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, teasing her with a faint smile. Bailey Hongzhuang felt a little guilty. It seemed that she had sat on his lap first. It's broad daylight and the world is clear. I only sat down because there were no chairs nearby. With that, she prepared to stand up. She could not possibly say that she had seduced him, right? Before she could stand up, Di Beichen's big hand pulled her back again. Alright, I won't tease you anymore. It's because my wife is too delicious that it's easy for your husband to misunderstand. How about that? Seeing the man speak so seriously, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that something was wrong. Was it really okay for this guy to ask this question so seriously? I'm thinking that Gong Jun played a huge role in obtaining this 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. After I refine the pills, I will give one of them to him. What do you think? She wasn't a greedy person. Originally, they didn't even know that Guan Hongtian had a 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. If it weren't for Gong Jun's help, they naturally wouldn't have been able to obtain it. It's fine as long as my wife makes the decision. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Chapter 65-20. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed the waiter's polite attitude and nodded in her heart. In terms of attitude, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion was indeed much better than the Wanbao Pavilion. Not only that, she noticed that the layout inside was also simple and clear. The lighting was very bright and the shelves looked expensive, but there were no extra decorations. Because of this, the entire Immortal Treasure Pavilion seemed more spacious. There were so many people gathered here, but it didn't seem crowded at all. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't look like they were here to buy anything, and even looked around and commented from time to time, the waiter didn't have any dissatisfaction. He just asked the two of them to look around, and then went to greet the other customers. His attitude didn't make anyone unhappy at all. The Wanbao Pavilion really chose the wrong shopkeeper. If he had chosen Gong Jun, the business of the Wanbao Pavilion would definitely be much better now. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. She began to believe that what Gong Jun said earlier was true. This guy. Perhaps he really did use his wealth to increase his cultivation level. Just as the two of them were talking, a voice full of surprise suddenly sounded. "Boss, you're here." Gong Jun's round figure was as agile as a fish in this crowded shop. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of the two of them. At this moment, his face full of meat was filled with an excited smile. If one looked closely, it was inexplicably cute. "Boss, madam, are you satisfied with the shop situation? I originally planned to invite you to take a look in a few days, but I didn't expect you to take the initiative to come. I knew that you must be thinking about me in your hearts. I'm really touched." Noticing that Gong Jun's eyes were slightly red because he was touched, Di Beichen couldn't help but say, "Stop." Gong Jun's expression immediately froze, and he forcibly suppressed it under Di Beichen's gaze. Di Beichen rubbed his eyebrows helplessly. This little brother that appeared out of nowhere was not only good at pestering people, but also had a big problem. He was too emotional. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Gong Jun was really too interesting. On the path of cultivation, she had seen all kinds of cold, arrogant, and despotic cultivators, but a person as emotional as Gong Jun was really rare. This guy's emotions came and went quickly. In the blink of an eye, he had returned to normal and pulled the two of them to the side. "Boss, madam, you don't know how good our Immortal Treasure Pavilion's business has been these past 2 days. Guan Hongtan was almost angered to death by me. However, no matter how angry he is, it's useless. After all, his things aren't as good as ours." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. "You mean that the things sold in the store are actually better than those sold in the Wanbao Pavilion?" Chapter 65-21. When the news first came out, many people thought that I was the one who hired them. Although it wasn't good news, some people didn't believe it, so they came to the store to buy elixirs. At first, I didn't take it to heart and even thought that it might be a trap set up by Guan Hongtian to make everyone hate the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. I even thought of a countermeasure, but I didn't expect that it wasn't Guan Hongtian's doing at all. Gradually, many people said that our Immortal Spirit Pills were better than the Immortal Spirit Pills of the Thousand Treasures Pavilion. As more and more people said this, the rumors spread and became more and more real. For this reason, I did some research and found that the Immortal Spirit Pills of the madam were indeed better. Gong Jun's eyes shone with excitement and worship. "Madam, your alchemy skills are really amazing. The same medicinal ingredients can have such an effect in your hands. It's really amazing." Not only that, after everyone found out that the Immortal Spirit Pills were better, Some people turned their attention to the immortal talismans, wanting to know if there was anything special about them. Who would have thought that they guessed right? The immortal talismans were better than the ordinary ones. As a result, our immortal treasure pavilion's business became better and better. Gong Jun's eyes narrowed into slits in ecstasy. Boss, you're really amazing. How did you do it? I've been in Xiun City for so long, but I've never encountered such a thing. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to Gong Jun's words and was secretly puzzled. She thought that Gong Jun might be taking the opportunity to flatter them, but she vaguely heard some customers saying the same thing. It was because the price was slightly lower than the 1,000 Treasures pavilions and the medicinal effects were better that it attracted so many cultivators. Is that true? Bewitching asked slowly. Gong Jun nodded repeatedly. I'm telling the truth. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching felt even more emotional. Since they came to the immortal realm, they had been learning from their master and had never seen other people's immortal spirit pills and immortal talismans, so they were completely unaware of such a thing. Since this matter was true, it also proved how strong his master was. Because of their attainments in alchemy and talisman techniques, their two disciples were able to perform so well. Boss, I've recorded all the money we earned recently. I plan to give it to you in 2 days, but since you're here today, I'll give it to you first. Gong Jun smiled and led the two of them towards the inner courtyard. Gong Jun, that's not why we're here today. I know, boss and madam, you must have wanted to see how this store is. Immortal spirit, immortal, 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 immortal. Now from the outside, it doesn't look worse than the 1,000 Treasures pavilion. Gong Jun lowered his voice, his eyes filled with disdain. Ever since these monsters appeared, on one hand, everyone was shocked by the power of darkness. On the other hand, they were even more ostracized by the power of darkness. Boss, if you don't know much about these monsters, I think you should take advantage of this time to learn more about them. Otherwise, when the time comes to register, you will definitely be at a disadvantage if you don't understand the habits of these monsters at all. Bewitching nodded slightly. He was indeed somewhat interested in these monsters. Chapter 65-24. Gong Jun, from the looks of it, you seem to know a lot about these monsters. Have you participated in this monster slaughtering competition before? Gong Jun shook his head. I haven't participated in it. You know that what I'm most interested in is doing business. I don't do things like brandishing weapons. Look at my body. You know, I can't starve myself to thin just to participate in a competition. Looking at Gong Jun's face full of love for the meat on his body, Bailey Hongzhuang already didn't know what words to use to express her feelings. If Xiao Xuanzi also knew Gong Jun, he probably wouldn't have been so serious about losing weight. The reason why I know about this is because the monster slaughtering competition is about to start, so everyone wants to buy some insurance during this period of time. The shop's business is so good, it has a lot to do with the monster slaughtering competition. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly understood. Indeed, whenever they want to go out to gain experience, almost everyone will prepare all the things they may need. Once he needed them, these things might be able to save his life. Boss, I heard that Yun Xiaoman and Guan Yi are also going to participate. Moreover, Guan Hongtian has been trying his best to prepare things for Guan Yi so that he can perform well in the monster slaughtering competition. Gong Jun's eyes revealed a trace of gloomy light. That little bastard originally wasn't from Xiun City, but with his strength, the success rate of participating in Xiun City's competition will be higher, so he came here now. This Guan Hongtian really takes care of his nephew, Gong Jun. Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed. Even a biological father and son may not be able to do this, let alone an uncle. Hee. Gong Jun chuckled, lowered his voice and said, Madam, there's something you don't know. Is there some inside story? As the saying goes, there is no hatred in the world for no reason, and there is no love for no reason. Guan Hongtian was definitely a snobbish person. He was extremely selfish. If it was only his nephew, why would he sacrifice so much? You don't know how much he had to pay for the 10,000-year-old purple blood vine. The lives of others are nothing in his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. After hearing what Gong Jun said, she felt that things were even more confusing. Madam, haven't you noticed that Guan Yi and Guan Hong Tian are somewhat similar? My nephew resembles my uncle, so it's not strange for them to be similar. Gong Jun smiled and shook his head. No, they're too alike. As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and immediately understood. So, Guan Yi is Guan Hongtian's son? Bailey Hongzhuang was in disbelief. Although she had heard of such a thing, she still found it hard to accept. Isn't that so? Gong Jun chuckled. At this time, Di Beichen's voice sounded. Chapter 65-25. After leaving the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked toward the City Lord's mansion. They came to the realm of Chaotic Immortal to gain experience. Since there was such a good opportunity, they naturally wouldn't miss it. I'm curious about these monsters. I wonder what they look like. There was a hint of curiosity on her delicate face as her bright eyes darted around. Although the realm of Chaotic Immortal was not as big as the Immortal Realm, there were many things that they had never seen before. It will start in half a month. You will know then. Di Beichen smiled faintly. We can buy a book when we go back later. Now that the monster slaying competition is near, there should be many books about this. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I've already seen many books on the way here. After all, we are not the only ones who have just come to the realm of Chaotic Immortal. The City Lord's mansion was located in the center of Shiyun City. The square courtyard was particularly eye-catching in the bustling streets. Although Shiyun City was not considered a large city in the realm of Chaotic Immortal, it was the entrance to the abandoned Immortal Forest. The flow of people was very shocking. Therefore, Shiyun City was one of the top cities among the many cities. The City Lord's mansion was majestic. 2 stone lions stood on either side of it, exuding boundless majesty. 2 groups of guards stood on either side of it in an orderly manner. Their cold faces and sharp gazes revealed the City Lord's mansion's confidence. No one dared to act rashly. At this moment, a few long tables were placed together in front of the City Lord's mansion's main gate. The tables were covered with red cloth. Many people had already formed a long line. Their names were recorded one by one. Obviously, everyone was here to sign up for the monster slaying competition. The scale of this monster slaying competition is indeed shocking. I heard that today is the 3rd day of registration. There are still so many people. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the long line and lined up behind Di Beichen. Other than cultivators who are cultivating in seclusion, most of the people who are free must have come to sign up. Di Beichen was also paying attention to the people who were registering. Among them, there were very young people and there were also some elders. Unlike the upper realms where the older a cultivator was, the more people feared them, the situation in the realm of chaos was the complete opposite. The younger a cultivator was, the more people feared them. This was because almost all of the cultivators here were at the Radiant Sun realm. Naturally, the younger the cultivator, the more talented and terrifying their potential would be. Therefore, when some young faces appeared, everyone would often pay more attention to them. If Xiren and the others knew about this, they would definitely come to sign up as soon as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. They had recently separated to train and hadn't seen each other for the past few days. However, through this demon-slaying competition, it was very likely that they would meet again. They won't miss such an opportunity, Di Beichen said with a faint smile. Just as the 2 of them were lining up to register, a series of congratulatory voices suddenly came from behind. Young Master Guan, you're here to sign up too? For this kind of thing, you only need to send someone to sign up. Why would you need to come here personally? I heard that young Master Guan is cultivating in seclusion. I'm sure you'll do well in the monster slaying competition. Compliments were heard one after another, attracting everyone's attention. Chapter 65-26. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang saw a familiar figure and couldn't help but sneer. It seemed that because Guan Yi had Guan Hongtian as his uncle, his reputation in Shiyun City was quite resounding. Guan Yi was smiling as he accepted everyone's congratulations. He knew all too well that these people were only doing this to establish a relationship with his uncle. How precious were the treasures in Wanbao Pavilion. Even if they could get a discount, it would be a great advantage for them. Although he had suffered a loss a few days ago, it didn't affect him for long. After all, he was still doing well in Shiyun City. However, just as he was feeling extremely happy, he suddenly noticed the two proud figures in front of him and the smile on his face stiffened. How could he be so unlucky? Originally, he wanted to avoid these two guys, so he didn't sign up on the first day. Instead, he deliberately waited for 2 days. Who would have thought that these two fellows would coincidentally come to register today as well? Guan Yi, what's wrong with you? Why did your expression suddenly become so ugly? Beside Guan Yi, a young man revealed a puzzled expression. Brother Bai, the person who poisoned us earlier was that woman in front. Yun Xiaoman's eyes were filled with viciousness. Thinking of how arrogant Bailey Hongzhuang was in front of her, she couldn't swallow this anger. However, she also knew very well that she didn't have the ability to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang and could only swallow this anger. Hearing Yun Xiaoman's words, Bai Luchuan also turned his gaze. Even if Yun Xiaoman didn't point it out clearly, he still saw the dazzling white figure at a glance. The willow-like woman was like a fairy in a painting. She was clearly standing in the crowd, but it was as if she was standing outside the mortal world, giving off an ethereal aura. Usually, he boasted that he had seen countless women, but compared to the woman in front of him, he understood what a real beauty was. Previously, when he heard Guan Yi talk about it, he didn't take it to heart. He only felt that his description was too exaggerated. Now, it seemed that he wasn't exaggerating at all. On the contrary, he didn't describe her true beauty. However, he also understood that this woman was a rose with thorns. Her method of poisoning was simply appalling. So it's the two of them. Bai Luchuan chuckled. Watch. I'll help you vent your anger in a while. As soon as these words came out, a trace of joy appeared on Yun Xiaoman's face. Big brother Bai, is what you said true? Of course it's true. How could I lie to you? Bai Luchuan wore a smug look. Have you forgotten my relationship with City Lord Manor? Yun Xiaoman's eyes lit up. Brother Bai, you are the most capable. I believe that you will definitely be able to avenge me and Brother Yi. Don't worry. Bai Luchuan slowly summoned a person and whispered a few words into his ear. The person nodded and walked towards the person who was recording the name cards. After the man passed on his message, the person who recorded the name cards quietly glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching before nodding his head. Next, we can wait to watch a good show. Bai Luchuan looked at the other party's expression and knew that his matter was done. The smile on his face also had a hint of pride. Luchuan, these two people are very difficult to deal with. If they know that we did this, it's inevitable that they will cause trouble again. Chapter 65-27. Guan Yi, didn't you suffer a loss last time? Why have you become so timid now? Bai Luchuan looked at Guan Yi with some disdain. You're a man after all. As long as you teach them a lesson, will they dare to find trouble with you in the future? Brother Bai is right. Last time, she deliberately tricked us. Maybe she really thinks we're easy to bully. If we teach them a lesson this time, not only can we vent our anger, but we can also make them fear us, Yun Xiaoman also said. Hearing this, Guan Yi nodded. He also felt very aggrieved about what happened that day. If it could be resolved, it would undoubtedly be best. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching only glanced at Guan Yi before retracting their gazes. The previous matter had been resolved. Now they were just strangers. Gradually, it was finally two people's turn. The man's cold voice sounded. Bewitching, Bailey Hongzhuang. Bewitching replied. The conditions for registration were very simple. They only needed to write down their names and receive an identity card. This identity card would have their own information. It was also very simple to make. It was similar to the upper realm. I've noted it down. You may leave. The man waved his hand and let the two of them leave with a look of disdain. Seeing this, Bewitching frowned slightly. You haven't given us the identity cards yet. Your conditions don't pass. You can't register, the man said coldly. Why don't our conditions pass? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She clearly noticed that the cultivators in front only reported their names and didn't have any requirements at all. However, when it was their turn, they suddenly said that their conditions didn't pass. Wasn't this too strange? Do we, the City Lord's mansion, have to explain our actions to you? If I say you don't pass, then you don't pass. The sudden commotion immediately attracted everyone's attention. Some of the people who had participated in the demon-slaying competition more than once naturally understood that the man's words were just a cover. It couldn't even be considered an excuse. It was obvious that he was deliberately making things difficult for them. They must have offended someone, so they were targeted, right? That's someone from the City Lord's mansion. It seems these two newcomers have quite the guts. After offending the City Lord's mansion, they actually dared to sign up for the monster-slaying competition organized by the City Lord's mansion. Isn't this a provocation? Lower your voice. There are always people who seek death. Let's just watch the show. Bailey Hongzhuang originally thought that the other party was deliberately making things difficult for her. Now that she heard the comments of the crowd, she was even more certain that her judgment was not wrong. It was just that they had only been in Shiyun City for a few short days, and they had not even met anyone from the City Lord's mansion, so how could they offend them? If I say you can't pass, then you can't pass. Why do you have so many questions? Are you leaving or not? The man's expression turned cold. If you don't leave, then I can only send people to chase you away. As the man's voice fell, the guards of the City Lord's mansion immediately took a step forward, as if they were ready to take action at any time. Master, these guys are too much. Xiao Hei's eyes burned with a raging fury. They were simply looking down on people with dog eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the City Lord's mansion's forces, then her gaze fell on Yun Xiaoman. Coincidentally, she saw a flash of pleasure in the latter's eyes. Xiao Hei could not help but voice out. This situation was really too depressing. A cold light flashed in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. When the demon-slaying competition begins, this grudge will definitely be avenged. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. Bewitching's calm face did not show any anger. However, with Bailey Hongzhuang's understanding of him, just from that slight expression, she already knew that he was angry. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.